and especially a time for worship, which is 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. And when we hear that bell, yeah, it's a time to come and worship. It's also a time to come and celebrate the good news that God has for each of us every week of every month of every year. Now the reading reads a little bit like a column from a daily newspaper. It talks real stuff. It says things like, why do we work so hard when people on benefits can earn more than we do? And it says, God puts all sorts of questions into our minds. Questions which it's hard to answer. Questions about our past, our present and our future. All sorts of perplexing questions about the complicated world that God owns and we live in. Why do we work so hard when some people skive on benefits? Why is it that I was made redundant last year? Why is it that when I tried to get a job, I found I was competing against 44 other people for every job? Why is it that my father was taken by God before it was time? Why is it that so much suffering has happened to my family and in my community? And God is supposed to be in charge of the world. Why is it that so much happens which we find it hard to explain? This is what God is saying in the reading. That is common to humankind the world over. There are not easy answers to those questions. If the National Health Service is struggling this much this year, what will happen when I need care in 15, 20 years' time? Before I really go to heaven. So many questions. And yet, what this reading is saying, and what we've just sung, is that God gives joy which nothing else can bring. Even though we haven't easy, slick answers to so many questions in our family life, in our community, in our national life and the world over, God gives us joy which nothing else can bring. You see, there's a difference between joy and happiness. Lots of people want happiness, but happiness is superficial. It comes and goes, like the breeze. Joy is something very deep, because you experience joy when you know where you've come from, and when you know what you're doing here on earth, and when you know where you're going. Joy comes to those who know where they've come from. I don't just mean my mum and dad, I mean have come from God, our Heavenly Father, who created us in the first place. Joy comes when you know where you've come from, what you're doing on earth, and that is to worship God and to serve Him in this world. And joy comes when you know where you're going. And I want to suggest to you that even though we have no slick answers to so many difficult problems, and God knows that, we can have a joy that nothing else can give when we know God through Jesus Christ. And I want to put in the hand of anybody who hasn't got that joy this afternoon, and who wants to know where they came from, what they're doing here, and where they're going. I want to put in your hand a small booklet, and it's called Making the Connection. Making the connection between earth and heaven. Making the connection between your life and God through Jesus for the rest of your life and afterwards. If you want to know joy, which nothing else can take away from you, take one of these, read it, and begin to understand the meaning of joy, which nothing else can take away from you when you know where you come from, what you're doing here on earth, and when you're going. Thank you for listening.
one here, but we're going to do one other quick ceremony, because if it had been properly up there, actually the first person to ring the bell would not have been the bishop, but it would have been Brother Henry. Brother Henry, where is he? Where he's here. So just before they take it off the picket, Brother Henry, please come forward. And on behalf of our congregation, ring that bell, because he is our bell ringer on Sunday mornings once it's properly fixed.